Armstrong, and this is Pointless, the quiz show where the lowest scorers are the biggest winners. To stay in the game, our contestants need to score as few points as possible. And the way they do that is by coming up with those obscure answers that no one else can remember. We've asked all our questions on Pointless to 100 people before the show. All our contestants have to do is find those unknown answers that none of our 100 people gave. So, for example, we gave 100 people 100 seconds to name as many cities in the UK as they could, and we found out that 97 of them said London. Well done. An obvious answer that would have scored them a horribly high 97 points. However, only 18 of them said Chester, a lesser-known city that would have scored you a respectably low 18 points. Occasionally, there are even some answers that none of our 100 people could name. So, for example, none of them said Ripon. So that would have been a truly pointless city, and it would score you absolutely nothing. You see, that's exactly what you want. If you find any of those, then we will add £250 to today's jackpot. Let's meet today's players. Welcome, Dan and Stuart. You are our first pair on the show. How do you two know each other?
We're father and son.
Excellent.
He's a miracle child, actually. When he was 2 years old, he fell backwards down a flight of steps and landed on his head at the bottom of the cellar. We thought he'd die, but he's here.
Oh, fantastic. Very good. Well, best of luck. Our next couple are Chris and Emily. You are the second pair today. How do you two know each other?
We're boyfriend and girlfriend. We've been together about a year and we met at university.
Fabulous. How long ago were you at university?
We've just finished now, about 3 months
So you knew each other
ago.
all the way through university and you've only just got together quite recently?
No, he should have got his act together.
He should have. Excellent. Well, let's hope you both do fantastically well this afternoon. Our next pair are Steve and Tracy. We give everyone 2 chances to reach the Pointless final. You did fantastically well in the last show. Any areas you're really hoping we don't get onto this afternoon?
Sport. We're not too good with sport.
OK. Well, best of luck to you. Our fourth pair, we welcome back Andy and George. It's your second and final chance to reach the Pointless final today. Remind us who you are.
I'm Andy, this is George. We're from Sheffield. We've worked together for a long time and we've been friends ever since.
Excellent. Well, best of luck this afternoon. And our final pair, we welcome back Catherine and Ben. You managed to reach the head-to-head on the last show. You did so well, but you just didn't quite make it to the final. You hoping you can go all the way today?
Who knows? It depends on what the topic is. You either know it or you don't.
It does. I'm afraid it does. Oh, well, best of luck to you all. Of course, there is just one final person I need to introduce. He is the keeper of all the pointless facts and figures. He's my pointless friend. It's Richard. Richard, how are you?
I'm really well. How are you?
Seldom better.
Excellent. Yeah, as you say, I've got all the facts here, and after the end of each question, I will be going through the best answers you could give. That's the ones with the lowest scores, the ones that the least people said. Also going through any pointless answers. What I'll also do on each question, go through the worst things you can say. Those are the things that most people said, the highest scoring answers. And I always point out that you don't know any of the questions or any of the answers on today's show. So if you need to know anything, if there are any gaps in your knowledge, yeah, why don't you ask me?
Hey, thanks, Richard.
That's OK.
Yesterday's finalists, Martin and Sheila, failed to win the jackpot of £2,250, so it rolls over, and today's jackpot total stands at £3,250. And we are really hoping that someone can win that this afternoon. But remember, if you find some pointless answers along the way, each one of them will add £250 to that amount. Let's play Pointless. In the first round, each of you must give me one answer and you cannot confer with your partner. You'll score 1 point for every one of the 100 people that gave that same answer. And remember, this is pointless, so you're trying to find the least well-known answers and score the fewest points. If anyone gives me an incorrect answer, they will, I'm afraid, score the maximum of 100 points, so do be careful. If you do give an incorrect answer, this will happen. You really don't want to see that. At the end of the round, your combined score will be totalled up and the highest scoring pair will be eliminated. Only 2 pairs will make it through to our head-to-head semi-final, so the pressure is really on. Our first category is sport. Hey, Steve. So can you all decide in your pairs who's going to go first, who's going to go second? OK, whoever's going first, please step up to the podium. OK, let's find out what our first question is going to be. We gave 100 people 100 seconds to name as many football teams in the Premier League as they could. Richard, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, the looks of delight that went across the faces of Tracy, Steve and Catherine particularly. We're looking for any of the 20 teams who are currently playing in the 2009-2010 Barclays Premier League. Any of the 20 teams in the current season.
Right, Dan and Stuart, before the show, you all drew lots, and today it turns out that you will be starting us off. So, Dan, you are first. What are you going to give us?
Burnley.
OK, remember you're looking to score as few points as possible. Let's see how many of our 100 said Burnley. It's a correct answer. It's good. It's very good. Look at that, 18. Well done, Dan. That means that 18 out of our 100 people said Burnley. On to our next pair. Emily, what are you going to say?
Oh, my dad's going to kill me because I should really know this. I'm going to go for a risky one. Southampton.
Southampton. Let's see how many of our 100 people said that. If it is a wrong answer, you will, of course, score the maximum of 100 points. Let's see how many of our 100 people said Southampton. Ah! Oh, dear, oh, dear. Unfortunately, that is a wrong answer, which means you score 100 points. Richard, Southampton.
Yeah, you know what? I could not be any more gutted that that's not a correct answer. I'm a big Southampton fan. I think I'm taking this worse than Emily. Not only are they not in the Premier League, they're not even in the league below it anymore. They've gone down from that.
Oh, bad luck, Emily. OK, just to remind you, we are looking for football teams in the Premier League, and we're looking for really obscure ones. Tracy.
Oh, this is a tough one for me. I hate football, I'm sorry to say. I'm going to go for Middlesbrough.
Middlesbrough. OK, let's see how many of our 100 people said Middlesbrough. Ouch! Unfortunately, that is also a wrong answer, which means you, like Emily and Chris, have scored 100 points. Oh, Richard, Middlesbrough.
Yeah, Middlesbrough, unfortunately, they were relegated at the end of last season, so not as wrong an answer as Southampton.
Bad luck, Tracy. On to our fourth pair. Andy, what are you going to say?
I'm going to have to play safe. I'm
OK.
hoping it's safe. I'm going to say Liverpool.
You're going to say Liverpool. Let's see how many of our 100 people said Liverpool. It's good. OK, 76 out of our 100 people said Liverpool, which means you score 76. On to our final pair. Just to remind you, we are looking for football teams in the Premier League. Ben, what are you going to go for?
This question's right up my street. I'm going to go for Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Let's see how many of our 100 people said that. It's the right answer. It's good.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, it's very good. Look at that. That means that 20 of our 100 people said that. OK, we're halfway through the round. Let's take this opportunity to see how we're doing on the scores. Dan and Stuart are looking pretty good on 18. You keep up that low score and you're definitely through to the next round. But I'm afraid things aren't looking quite so hot for Tracy and Steve and Emily and Chris, both of whom are on 100. They've just got to pray that they can get a pointless on the next pass and that everybody else scores nice and high. OK, now we're going to come back up the line. Can the second players please take their places at the podium? Catherine, you are currently on 20. The high scores at the moment are 100. To be absolutely safe, you want to be scoring 79 or less. There's the red line you want to come below. If you are above that red line, you're looking vulnerable. If you're below that red line, you're definitely safe and definitely through to the next round. We're looking, need I remind you, for football clubs in the Premier League.
I know so little about football. This is going to have to be a wild guess, so sorry, Ben. Everton.
Let's see how many of our 100 people said Everton. You're through. Very Very good. That means 55 of our 100 people said Everton, which brings your score up to 75. She did all right, didn't she, Ben?
Yeah, not bad at all.
OK, on to our next pair. George, what are you going to say?
I'm going to say Wigan Athletic.
OK, our current high scorers, of course, are Stephen Tracy and Chris and Emily. They're both on 100. To be absolutely safe, you want to be 23 or less. There's the red line. Let's see how many of our 100 people said Wigan Athletic. It's good. Oh, it's quite good. It's good enough. Look at that. Well done, George. That means that 19 of our 100 people said Wigan Athletic. That brings your total up to 95. You're safe. You're definitely through to the next round. On to our next pair. Steve, I need hardly remind you, you are current joint high scorers with Chris and Emily. You've got to hope that you score as low as possible with this.
I'm trying to think of the other team that was promoted. I think it was Birmingham. I'm not sure, but I'm just going to go for it, Birmingham.
OK. Remember, an incorrect answer will score you the maximum of 100 points. Let's see how many of our 100 people went with Birmingham. Oh, it's right. And it's not bad. 27. That means that 27 of our 100 people said Birmingham. That brings your total up to 127. You are the current high scorers, but there's everything to play for. Chris, we're looking for football clubs in the Premier League. What are you going to say?
I've got to have a kind of stab in the dark because I've got to don't want to get any more than 27. So I think I'm going to go for it. I think I'm going to say West Bromwich Albion.
West Bromwich Albion. As you said, you've got to score less than 27. Ideally, you want to be scoring 26 or less to be absolutely safe. Let's see how many of our 100 people said West Bromwich Albion. Ah! Ouch! Unfortunately, that's another wrong answer, which means you score another maximum of 100 points. Richard, West Bromwich Albion.
Yeah, again, exactly the same as with Middlesbrough. They were relegated at the end of last season.
Bad luck. As you've probably worked out, you are now unassailably our highest scorers, so you will definitely be out at the end of this round. That's a sigh of relief for Steve and Tracy. On to Stuart and Dan. You're absolutely safe whatever happens. Why not see if you can find a pointless answer and add 250 quid to the jackpot?
I'll go with Blackburn Rovers.
Very good. Blackburn Rovers. Let's see how many of our 100 people said that. It's a correct answer. It's not bad. It's good. Look at that. That means that 19 out of our 100 people said Blackburn Rovers, and that brings your score up to 37. So that's the end of round one. The losing pair with an enormously high score, I'm afraid, is Chris and Emily. Bad luck. You just don't quite know your football enough, do you?
I had to take a risk with that answer and didn't pay off, so...
Well, that's always the tough thing in this show. You know, if you want a pointless, you really have to stick your neck out, and that does mean you are vulnerable. But, Richard, what answers should they have gone for if they'd wanted to stay in?
Well, there were no pointless answers in that round, so I'll just take you through the bottom three, the three lowest scores, the three things you should have gone for. Burnley, which we got from Dan, which is excellent, one of the promoted teams.
Very good.
But then also Hull City and Stoke City, both of whom were in the Premiership, been there for a couple of seasons now. The top five in this were exactly the same as the top five in the Premiership last season. It went Man United, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Everton, exactly the same as the top five.
Well, thanks, Richard. OK, Chris and Emily, remember everyone gets 2 chances to reach our pointless final. So we'll see you again next time for your final chance. But thank you so much for playing. You've been great. For the remaining 4 pairs, though, it's time for round 2. OK, guys, the round 2 category is film. It's film. So can you decide in your pairs who's going to go first and who's going to go second?
It's a terrible subject. I'll go first.
OK, whoever's going first, please step up to the podium. Remember, Pointless is all about scoring the fewest points. You are looking for the answers that the fewest of our 100 people said. OK, let's find out what the question is. We gave 100 people 100 seconds to name as many Best Picture Oscar winners as they could. Can you be more specific, Richard?
Yeah, we're essentially looking for any film that's won the Best Picture category at the Academy Awards since 1970. So from 1970 onwards, the Best Picture at the Oscars.
OK, so Dan and Stuart, you are first. Dan, what are you going to say?
I think I'm going to say The Lord of the Rings.
You're going to have to be more specific than that, because there were 3 films, remember.
Fellowship of the Ring.
You're going to go for The Fellowship of the Ring.
Yes.
I'll take that. The Fellowship of the Ring. How many of our 100 people said Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring? If it's a wrong answer, of course, you will score the maximum of 100 points. I'm afraid, unfortunately, that is a wrong answer, and that means you do score 100 points. Richard, Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring?
Yeah, it was nominated in 2001, but unfortunately it didn't win there, didn't win Best Picture.
OK, Tracy and Steve. Just to remind you of the question, we are looking for Best Picture Oscar winners. Tracy, what are you going to go for?
I am going to go for Ordinary People.
Ordinary People. Let's see how many of our 100 people said Ordinary People. It's good. It's very good. Look at that. It's pointless! That means that none of our 100 people said Ordinary People, and it adds £250 to today's jackpot. Takes us up to £3,500. Very well done, Tracy. It also means you scored nothing, and that's great. On to our third pair, Andy. We are looking for Best Picture Oscar winners. The more obscure, the better. What are you going to say?
I'm going to go with my first choice. I'm going to go with Forrest Gump.
OK, let's see how many of our 100 people said Forrest Gump. That is good. Very good. Look at that, 10. That means 10 of our 100 people said that. And Forrest Gump has earned Andy and George 10 points. Finally, Catherine, what are you going to go for?
It's a Clint Eastwood film, Pale Rider.
Pale Rider. Let's see how many of our 100 people said Pale Rider. Bad luck. I'm afraid that is an incorrect answer, so that scores you the maximum of 100 points. That's terrible news for you, but pretty good news for Dan and Stuart, because they were way out in front there on the points. OK, we're halfway through the round. Let's see where we are on the scores. Steve and Tracy, you're doing very well with the lowest score of 0. That's fantastic. You've got to try and keep that up, and you're definitely through to the next round. But I'm afraid things aren't looking that good for Catherine and Ben or Dan and Stuart, both of whom are on 100 points. OK, we're going to come back down the line. Will the second players please take their places at the podium? Ben, we are looking for Best Picture Oscar winners. What's it going to be?
Film I've never seen. I'm going to try Titanic.
You are one of our top scorers. Not in a good way. And you've got to hope that Titanic, a little-known film, will score you a pointless or something very low anyhow. Let's see how many of our 100 people went with Titanic. It's not bad. That's really not bad at all. That means 33 of our 100 people said Titanic. That brings your score up to 133. Down to George and Andy. Well, you're safe whatever happens. Even if you score the maximum of 100 points, you're still going through to the next round. Just to remind you of the question, we are looking for Best Picture Oscar winners. George, what are you going to go for?
It's a good job I am safe. This is not my subject. If this isn't an Oscar winner, it should have been. Saving Private Ryan.
Let's see how many of our 100 people went with Saving Private Ryan. Bad luck. Well, never mind. You're still through to the next round. Richard, Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, again, a great film. It was nominated in 1998, but didn't win the Oscar.
On to our next pair, Steve and Tracy.
I think I'm going to go for Stand By Me.
Well, as we've said, you're safe. Stand By Me. Let's see if maybe you can get another pointless. How many of our 100 people said Stand By Me? Oh! Unfortunately, that's another wrong answer, which means that you score 100 points, but you're still safe. On to our final pair. Stuart, you are on 100 points at the moment. To stay in the game, you have to score 32 or less. What are you going to say?
I'll say Annie Hall, Woody Allen's film.
Let's see how many of our 100 people said that. OK, well, it's getting down there. You're safe? It's good. Oh, very good indeed. Look at that. That means that just one person out of our 100 people said Annie Hall, and that brings your total up to a safe 101. So at the end of round 2, the losing pair with the highest score is Catherine and Ben. Bad luck. You reached the head-to-head yesterday. Today you got cruelly. It just wasn't your subject, was it?
No, not at all.
But anyway, it's been wonderful having you on the show. Thanks very much. Richard, what answers should they have gone for?
Well, believe it or not, there were 8 pointless answers, so 8 films that have won the Best Picture Oscar since 1970 that none of our 100 people gave. Amadeus, yes. Nobody mentioned. Crash, which won in 2006. Driving Miss Daisy, also a pointless answer. Midnight Cowboy, the Dustin Hoffman film, was a brilliant film. Brilliant. Ordinary People. Out of Africa, no one remembered at all. And There's More.
And There's More.
Terms of Endearment and Bertolucci's The Last Emperor, all pointless answers. Now, Ben, you've very kindly already given us the top answer, which was Titanic. Before you go, do you want to have a go at the other 2 in the top 3?
I wouldn't have no idea.
Couldn't hazard a guess.
Well, number 2 was Slumdog Millionaire, and number 3 was The Godfather. I'll say to Dan, although the Fellowship of the Ring wasn't an Oscar winner, if you'd said Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, that was an Oscar winner.
Thanks, Richard. Catherine and Ben, that was your second and final chance on the show. You just clearly didn't have the pointless knowledge you needed to get through to the final. So we have to say goodbye, but thanks so much for playing. Thank you. For the remaining 3 pairs, though, it's time for round 3. Only 2 pairs will make it through to the head-to-head, so this is your final chance. All of you need to find those low-scoring answers to stay in the game. The round 3 category is languages. Languages. Right, whoever's going first, please step up to the podium. Right, let's find out what the question is going to be. We gave 100 people 100 seconds to name as many Spanish-speaking countries of the world as they could. Richard, what exactly does that mean?
We're essentially looking for any country that has Spanish as one of its official or administrative languages. And as always, when we say countries, we have to say we mean members of the UN, you know, genuinely recognised countries.
OK, thanks, Richard. Dan, once again, you're going first. What are you going to say?
I think I'm going to go with Bolivia.
Let's see, how many of our 100 people said Bolivia? It's correct. It's good. Oh, it's very good. Look at that, 7. That means 7 out of our 100 people said Bolivia. That gives you a score of 7. Our next pair, Tracy, what are you going to go for?
I'm going to go for, and it's going to be completely wrong, but I'm going to go for Uruguay.
Let's see how many of our 100 people said Uruguay. You're all right. It's good. It's very good. Look at that. 6. That means that 6 out of our 100 people said Uruguay, and that gives you a score of 6. OK, our final pair. Andy, we're looking for Spanish-speaking countries of the world. What are you going to say?
I can only think of the obvious one. I'm going to say Ecuador.
Andy's going to say Ecuador. Let's see how many of our 100 people said Ecuador as well. It's good. It's another low score. Look at that. 8. That means that 8 of our 100 people said Ecuador. Look at that for grouping. 6, 7, and 8. Fantastic. OK, we're halfway through the round. Let's see how we're doing on the scores. Well, Tracy and Steve are doing fantastically well with their low score of 6. Andy and George, Well, you're still doing pretty well on 8, I have to say, but you are our current front runners, so you want to be scoring even lower on the next pass. OK, we're coming back down the line. Can the second players please take their places at the podium? OK, George, remember we're looking for Spanish-speaking countries of the world. What are you going to say?
Well, the time for being safe's gone, so I'm going to go with the current trend, and I'm going to say Costa Rica.
Costa Rica. OK, you've got to hope for a very, very low score here. Costa Rica, let's see how many of our 100 people said that. It's good. It's very good. Look at that, 3. That means 3 of our 100 people said Costa Rica. That takes your total up to 11. Steve, it's your turn. Remember, George and Andy are currently on 11. They are our current high scorers. To be absolutely safe, you want to be scoring no more than 4. I'm just going to remind you where that comes on our... Oh, if I can get down there. No! Oh, it's down there. You want to be below that line to be absolutely safe.
I'm going to say Venezuela.
OK, let's see how many of our 100 people said Venezuela. It's a correct answer. And it goes. Oh! That means that 6 of our 100 people said Venezuela. That takes your total up to 12. By 1 point, you are now our highest scorers. Right, on to our third pair. Stuart, Steve and Tracy are our current high scorers on 12. To survive, you have to get 4 or less. What are you going to go with?
Gosh, it's really difficult, such low scores. I'll go with Guatemala.
There's the red line. You have to come in below that with Guatemala. Let's see how many of our 100 people said Guatemala. There it is. Oh, you've done it! You've done it, and you've scored a pointless into the bargain. That means that none of our 100 people said Guatemala, and it adds £250 to today's jackpot. Now standing at £3,750. So at the end of round 3, the losing pair with the highest score, and I'm sorry about this because it's a fabulously low score, are Steve and Tracy. It's so unlucky. 12 is an extremely respectably low score. Feeling a bit gutted, I imagine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, dear, oh dear. Richard, what answers should they have gone for?
There were 3 pointless answers. These are the answers that none of our 100 people could remember. Stuart's already given us Guatemala. You could, of course, we all know they speak Spanish in Equatorial Guinea.
Yeah.
And Dominican Republic, they speak Spanish as well. They were all the pointless answers. The worst answers you could have given, the ones that would have scored you the most points, the most obvious ones. Third is Argentina. Second was Mexico. And I wonder if the audience would like to guess what the first was. The first, Spain. There we go, Spain.
What score was that? 94.
So
I'd quite like to meet those 6 people who didn't put Spain down for that. Well, thanks very much, Richard. Steve and Tracy, it was your second and final chance on the show, and I'm afraid you just didn't have the pointless knowledge you needed to win. So I'm afraid we do have to say goodbye, but thanks so much for playing. You've been great. But for the remaining 2 pairs, things are about to get even more exciting now as we enter the head-to-head. So well done, Andy and George, and Dan and Stuart. You've made it through to the head-to-head. Now, only 1 pair can make it through to today's final and play for today's jackpot, which currently stands at £3,750. OK, here's how the head-to-head works. You are now allowed to confer. Each team will take turns to give me an answer, and you'll each have an equal number of turns. The first team that accumulates more than 100 points, or the team that goes over 100 by the most, will lose. So, as always, to stay in the game, you want to score as few points as possible by saying those answers that the fewest of our 100 people gave. Dan and Stuart, you performed best over the first 3 rounds, so not only do you get to decide whether or not you go first, you also get to choose the topic. You get to choose between currency or science fiction?
Yeah, we'll go science fiction.
You're going to go science fiction. Do you want to go first or second?
First.
OK, let's play Pointless. OK, let's find out what the question is. We gave 100 people 100 seconds to name as many actors that have played the Doctor in Doctor Who as they could. So, Richard, what are the criteria?
Well, we're looking for any of the 10 actors who have officially played Doctor Who. That's not people in sort of comic relief specials or spoofs or things like that. The 10 actors who have officially played him, and we're not counting the 11th Doctor, who is Matt Smith, who's about to take over.
OK, thanks very much. Now, remember, you don't want to go over 100, so you want to score the lowest number of points each time. OK, Dan and Stuart, it's your turn.
Okay.
Yeah. OK, we'll go with the first Doctor, William Hartnell.
Your first answer is William Hartnell. Let's see how many of our 100 people said William Hartnell. It's good, it's very good. Look at that. 30. Very good. 30 of our 100 said William Hartnell. So with your first answer, your score is now 30. Andy and George, what's your first answer going to be?
Okay.
Yep.
We'll go with Sylvester McCoy.
Sylvester McCoy. Let's see how many of our 100 people said Sylvester McCoy. Oh, it's good. 32. 32 of our 100 people said Sylvester McCoy. So after one answer each, 32 to Andy and George, 30 to Dan and Stuart. Dan and Stuart, your second answer. We're looking for actors who've played Doctor Who.
Okay. Colin Baker.
You're going to say Colin Baker. OK, you are currently on 30. To avoid going over the 100, you want to score 70 or less. That is the red line there. Let's see how many of our 100 said Colin Baker. It's safe. It's very good. Look at that. 17. 17 out of our 100 people said Colin Baker. OK, Andy and George, you need to be careful now. Your next answer could take you over 100 points, and you could risk leaving the game. Your second answer, please.
So nerve-wracking, I'm sweating. Peter Davidson.
Peter Davidson. You're going to go with Peter Davidson. You're currently on 32. To be absolutely safe and remain under 100 points, you want to be scoring 68 or less. Let's see how many of our 100 people said Peter Davidson. You're safe. It's not bad, 33. OK, after two answers each, your score is now on 65. And Dan and Stuart, your score is 47. OK, Dan and Stuart, we're looking for actors who have played the Doctor in Doctor Who. Your third answer, please.
Let's go with some of the older ones. Patrick Troughton. Yeah. Patrick Troughton.
Patrick Troughton, you are on 47. To avoid going over the 100, you want to be scoring 53 or less. Let's see how many of our 100 people said Patrick Troughton. It's good. Down it goes. Look at that, 18. Well done. That takes your score after three answers to 65, which just happens to be the same score as Andy and George are on after two answers. So, Andy and George, what's it going to be for your third answer? We're looking for actors who've played Doctor Who. Remember, you need to avoid going over 100.
Go for it. We're going to go with Christopher Eccleston.
Let's see how many of our 100 said Christopher Eccleston. You're safe. It's the correct answer. After your third answer, your score is now 95. On to our fourth answer from Dan and Stuart. What are you going to go for?
I like the sound of that.
Okay, all right. John Pertwee.
Very good. That gets Dan's approval. You're going to go with John Pertwee. To avoid going over the 100, you want to be scoring 35 or less. Let's see how many of our 100 went with John Pertwee. Oh, 59 out of our 100 people said John Pertwee. That takes your score to 124. However, it's not all over yet. Andy and George have yet to give their fourth answer. What's it going to be?
Go on, then. We'll go with another Baker. We'll go with Tom Baker.
You're going to go with Tom Baker. Now, to win, to get through to the final, you have to score lower than Dan and Stuart on 124. That means you have to score 28 or less on this. There is the red line. You have to come below if you're going through to the final. Let's see how many of our 100 people said Tom Baker. Well, you've had 4 turns each. You have both gone over 100 points, but I'm afraid, Andy and George, you have scored the highest with 150. So that, alas, means you are off the show. But you did awfully well there. You look quite confident, I thought.
Not confident, we're just amazed we got this far. I think anything after the first round was a bonus.
Well, you've done fantastically well. Richard, what other answers could they have gone for?
Well, we'd had almost all of the answers by the time you had to give your last question. There were only 3 options left. You gave us one of them, which was Tom Baker, which lost it for you. Another one was David Tennant, which also would have lost it for you. But there is one name that would have won it for you, and that was the 8th Doctor, and it was Paul McGann, who was in a one-off film, and he would have won it for you. Paul McGann.
Well, thanks very much, Richard. Andy and George, that was your second and final chance on the show. You got so close, but I'm afraid you just didn't have that pointless knowledge you need to win. So I'm afraid we have to say goodbye to you. But thanks so much for playing. You've been great. But for Dan and Stuart, it's time for our pointless final. Congratulations, Dan and Stuart. It's only your first time on the show, and you've made it to the end of Pointless. You've fought off 4 pairs and won our Pointless trophy. Now you've got a chance to win our Pointless jackpot. Nobody's won the jackpot for the last 2 shows. In fact, the jackpot's only been won once in this series so far. Today's jackpot stands at £3,750. The rules are very simple. To win the money, all you have to do is find a pointless answer that none of our 100 people could think of. First, you must choose a category from these 3 options, and you can go for Shakespearean characters, British girl bands, or prize-winning artists. What's it going to be?
Yeah.
Shakespearean characters.
OK, let's find out what the question is. So we gave 100 people 100 seconds to name as many characters in Romeo and Juliet as they could. Richard, elaborate.
Yeah, essentially we're looking for any character with a named part in Romeo and Juliet, a speaking part, either named in the text or the margin. Characters just with generic job titles don't count. So named characters from Romeo and Juliet. There are 21. Very tough, but it's always very, very tough in the jackpot round.
OK, thanks very much, Richard. OK, you now have 1 minute to come up with those 3 answers. All you need to win that £3,750 is for just one of those answers to be pointless. Your 60 seconds start now.
OK.
Okay, there's what's his name, Friar Lawrence.
Yes, say that.
There's the nurse. Say Friar Lawrence. Benvolio, Mercutio, Romeo, Mr.
Romeo.
Capulet. What's Mr. Capulet called?
OK, so we've got Friar Lawrence.
Yeah, Friar Lawrence.
Mercutio.
Mercutio's too popular, I think. Benvolio.
Benvolio.
I hope he's in Romeo and Juliet.
Who else?
I don't know. Who's... well, we've got Mercutio.
Yeah.
You got 20 seconds left.
Think. It's a Mercurio.
No, I don't think he's in Romeo and Juliet. What's...
Is there an Antony?
Should we just say Capulet? Or like Montague, or just the question.
So your time is up. Which 3 characters are you going to go for?
I'm going to go with Friar Lawrence.
Friar Lawrence.
Capulet.
Capulet.
And Benvolio.
Benvolio. So, Friar Lawrence, Lord Capulet, and Benvolio. Let's see how many of our 100 people said Friar Lawrence. This is for the jackpot of £3,750. Friar Lawrence. Down it goes. It's good. It's very good. Look at that. Oh, 3 of our 100 people said Friar Lawrence, so unfortunately that is not a pointless answer. We are looking for characters in Romeo and Juliet. This has to be a pointless answer. Let's hope none of our 100 people said your next answer, Lord Capulet. Well, it's a correct answer, Lord Capulet. This has to be pointless. Down it goes. Yeah, it's good, but it's just not good enough. Well, I'm sorry, 10 out of our 100 people gave that answer, so it is not a pointless answer. We are looking for characters in Romeo and Juliet. We really have to hope that your one final chance to win today's jackpot is successful. Benvolio. We've got to hope that this is a pointless answer, and none of our 100 people said it. Let's see how many people said Benvolio for £3,750. This is your last chance. Unfortunately, you didn't manage to find that all-important pointless answer, so you don't win today's jackpot of £3,750, which rolls over to our next show. However, you do get to take home our pointless trophy. Oh, you've done so well. Richard, what answers could they have gone for?
Well, Friar Lawrence was a great answer. Of course, Friar Lawrence sends a letter to Romeo explaining that Juliet is not dead. But it doesn't get through because Friar John is in quarantine. If you said Friar John, that was a pointless answer. All the other pointless answers are servants. Anthony and Gregory are both servants of the Capulets.
You said Anthony. You said, is there an Anthony?
Yeah.
Oh. Anthony would have just won you £3,750. Anthony and Gregory, both servants of the Capulets. Potpan and Samson, also, they're both Capulet servants. And Peter has got to be the obscurest of all. He is Juliet's nurse's servant.
Ah, well. Guys, you've done fantastically well. You've been great contestants. Thanks very much for coming along. Nobody has won our jackpot today, so it rolls over to our next show. Join us then to see if anyone can win it on Pointless. Meanwhile, it's goodbye from Richard.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. Goodbye.